Дежурный осужденный Фролов Алексей Викторович, 65-го года рождения. Статья 102, пункты ГЗ.
Не-не-не.
Да, я должен был получить высшую меру.
Ну и что, и жить так не хочется?
Нет.
Или хочется?
Нет. Если был выбор, я бы выбрал смертную казнь.
Все под одно в отправе, Ну, в принципе, это же... Вот рядом.
This is the most notorious prison in Russia, known as the Island of Hell. Over 300 years, no prisoner has left alive. Black Dolphin strikes fear into the hearts of even the most hardened criminals. Housing Russia's most dangerous individuals, it's fortified with 1,000 guards, 100 police dogs, and sniper towers. Escape is impossible. Inmates endure extreme isolation, confined to cells with no windows or ventilation. They eat alone and exercise briefly in blindfolds. Despite its severity, some question if such conditions are fair for those who have committed serious crimes.
Russia has thrown hundreds of thousands of troops into its war in Ukraine and suffered immense casualties. Some of those personnel are drawn from Russia's prisons, both officially and through a private military company called the Wagner Group. With the support of the Pulitzer Center, special correspondent Simon Ostrovsky and videographer Yegor Troyanovsky traveled to a Ukrainian prisoner of war camp. They met with men faced with a stark choice: prison or the front lines.
This is Artyom. 3 months ago, he was serving a 9-year sentence for murder in a Russian penal colony. Now, he's calling his mother to tell her he's no longer a convict. He's a prisoner of war.
Алло, мам, привет. Это я.
Hello, Mom. Hi.
Hello?
It's me. Listen, everything is okay. Don't worry, I'm okay. Basically, I've been captured in Ukraine. Understand?
But how?
It's war. That's what happens.
Are you being fed?
Everything's okay. There's food.
Are they hurting you?
No. The surprising thing is the people in Ukraine are okay.
He's not alone. Artyom, whose name we've changed, is one of tens of thousands of convicts who've been taken from prisons in Russia since June and thrown into the meat grinder that is the front line of the war in Ukraine.
A frightening image inside a prison in El Salvador, and President Nayib Bukele wants the world to see. He says it shows gang members punished and kept in crowded cells away from any sunlight since the end of March. Bukele says the food is now being rationed to 2 meals per day for gang members now facing harsher sentences. For 10 days, the country's national police has been operating with less restrictions. They say they've arrested over 6,000 suspected gang members, tracking them in neighborhoods, inside homes, and even hiding underground. The crackdown in response to one of the deadliest weekends in El Salvador, authorities reporting 67 homicides in a single day, prompting a state of emergency that gave way to mass arrest and tougher punishment to gang members already behind bars. This week, President Bukele doubling down on his efforts.
Ustedes desatan una ola de criminalidad y nosotros quitamos la comida en las cárceles.
Threatening that any retaliation to the recent crackdown would lead to further punishment.
Por ahí andan rumores que quieren empezarse a vengar de la gente honrada, al azar. Hagan eso y no va a haber un tiempo de comida en las cárceles. Uno. A ver cuánto tiempo duran sus homeboys allá adentro.
For days, the president touting the efforts on social media under the hashtag War on Gangs. Bukele even asking parents to show the videos to their teenage children and warn them, saying gangs can only lead to prison or death. President Bukele operating with the support of residents and Congress, which first approved the state of emergency that allows for all new detainees to be held for 15 days without access to an attorney. A move that human rights groups say is creating a framework for abuse.
Y las autoridades no han dicho ni han mostrado que haya investigaciones previas como para decir que están desmontando alguna estructura de pandillas y que justifique 6,000 capturas.
But Bukele responding to criticism, accusing them of defending the gangs.
Y no me importa lo que digan los organismos internacionales, que vengan a proteger a nuestra gente, que vengan a llevarse a sus pandilleros, si tanto los quieren.
Now, this all started March 27th, so there's still 20 days left of the state of emergency under which the National Police will continue to operate with less restrictions, and the president not backing down, warning that life will only get more difficult for all gang members in El Salvador.
It looks like a sea of skin and tattoos. These images released by El Salvador's government shows the transfer of about 2,000 inmates, stripped to their shorts and with their heads shaved, to what's been dubbed the country's new mega prison. It just opened. It's believed to be the largest prison in the Americas with a capacity for 40,000 people, and it's the latest step in a controversial crackdown on crime that's caused the country's prison population to soar. Human rights organizations have reported that innocent people have been caught up in the law enforcement campaign. That includes dozens, they say, who have died in police custody. Last year, the country's president asked Congress for emergency powers to temporarily suspend some constitutional rights after a massive spike in murders attributed to gang crime. It includes that arrests can be made without a warrant and detainees no longer have a right to a lawyer. Private communications of all citizens can also be accessed by the government. Since then, about 64,000 suspects have been arrested, and murder reports fell about 57% last year.
Remember these mega prisons? Well, El Salvador's government says they're working. According to government figures, the murder rate in the country has dropped significantly. Some 74,000 people have been arrested since President Bukele waged a war on gangs. Last year, over 150 people a day were sent to prison. Although thousands were freed by judges, the alleged gang members that are still locked up aren't allowed to go outside or even have visitors. Human rights organizations have criticized the government for unfairly jailing citizens on suspicion of being linked to the gangs and for the system's lack of rehabilitation.
What's going on, you guys? Welcome back. Another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. Appreciate you guys checking out the channel. Means a lot, guys. Once again, racking up the views, racking up the subscribers. Love seeing it. Put a lot of effort, put a lot of work in these videos. So it means a lot from each and every one of you, especially the feedback. Love seeing the conversations going on, differing opinions, just different sides taken. That's what it's all about. So today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be doing a series, Would You Rather? Okay? And Would You Rather today is going to cover, would you rather be, there's two kind of prisons we're going to cover, all right? Both very notorious, both very well known. So it's going to be, would you rather be in Black Dolphin prison, which is an infamous prison in Russia on the border of Kazakhstan? Or would you rather be in an El Salvadorian prison, the Center for the Confinament of Terrorism, which opened up about a year and a half ago? Each equally intimidating, each equally built for the sole purpose of putting the worst of the worst away. But they go about it in very different ways, very unique ways. And in my opinion, go about it in a way to break the spirit of the inmate. And it's insane, the things that are done in these situations. So, would you rather? We're going to be starting off with Black Dolphin, located in Oblast, Russia. It's near the border of Kazakhstan. It's one of the toughest and most brutal prisons on earth. This one was actually kind of harder to get more information for. If you watch the National Geographic, I would tell anyone to take the time, watch the documentary done on Black Dolphin Prison that was on National Geographic. It's very interesting. The insight, the footage that they get when you realize the security level of this prison, and what this prison usually allows is no access. No way. I mean, when we get into the security measures that these guys take, you're going to see what I'm talking about. It is crazy. So it was built a long time ago, all right? Which is a complete contrast to the one that was built in El Salvador, which is pretty recently. Like I said, it's one of the toughest, most brutal prisons on earth. It's also one of the oldest. It dates back to the 1700s, all right? And it was the first prison in Russia to accept inmates with life sentences. Initially, it was developed for a lifetime of hard labor. Now, you don't see these prisons in the United States, the hard labor camps, but you do in Russia, you do in North Korea, you do in like China, some of these communist states. Not just communist states, but I'm just listing off a few of the more well-known one. It now houses around 700 plus of Russia's worst offenders. And they run the gamut of crimes. They run the gamut of crimes. Picture the worst crimes, the worst things you can be convicted of. Excuse me. And that's what you're going to find inside a Black Dolphin. When you go up to it, you'll see the Black Dolphin sculpture that was actually designed by fellow inmates. They call it Vladimir Putin's personal hole into hell. And if you don't know who Putin is, he is the leader of Russia, going on his like 6th or 7th term. He's been in there like 25 years. It's one of those guys that you don't vote against, because if you vote, actually I shouldn't say vote against, if you run against him, you might just disappear and never come back, and they'll never find out what happened to you. So Russia kind of is one of those countries that's intimidating in general, and one of those things that people kind of look at with a side eye. It's so big. There are so many people. It's always very cold. You know, and you see that with where this Black Dolphin prison's located. It looks like a frozen tundra. You can just tell. I can just picture rolling up to that thing. And, I mean, any prison's intimidating, but just seeing where this is located, you see why nobody has ever even left the prison. It's crazy. You don't, when you get out, when you go in, you don't get out. It's kind of like the ADX. If I had to compare it, you'd want to compare it to like the ADX in Colorado. Like a clean version of hell, right? It's just the end of the line. It's the end of the line. Considering that Russia has almost 500,000 prisoners, you have to be a very special inmate, a very special individual to make it here. What makes it so brutal is the fact, the mental stress the inmates are constantly under. So, if you do the research, if you watch the documentary I told you to watch, they're behind 3 sets of steel doors. For 90 minutes a day, they're placed in what they call a recreation cage. It's just a cage where they can walk around. Now, this is crazy. Every day, the cells are searched for contraband and other items. You don't see this in the United States. You don't see this. They're not every single day brought out and everything turned upside down. You see this with these inmates in Russia. They are allowed a fraction of what the inmates in the United States are allowed. It's It is crazy, but every day it is searched for contraband. The level of security, just the the discipline that goes into this is just on another level. They are under a 24-hour surveillance. They are not, and this is the crazy part, right? You want to talk about mental stress or forget stress, torture. At a certain time in the morning, they are not allowed to rest or sit down for around 16 hours. So from basically the time you wake up to bedtime, you sleep, you get up, you're not allowed to just chill. You're going to be pacing around. I mean, oh my God, if you really picture that, you're in a cell with another guy. They're checking on you every 15 minutes. The lights are always on. The motion detectors are always on 24/7. You are forced to respond, yes, sir, when they check on you every 15 minutes. And this is another part that's just nuts. 4 meals a day, always the same. It is soup, it is bread. Many inmates talk about suffering from malnourishment, disease, illness. But in particular, watching the interviews with the inmates, you can see it on their face. And I don't have any, I hate to say it, some of the crimes these guys committed were just as bad as you could make it. You couldn't even put it in a movie, how bad some of these crimes were. You can see it on their face. They are broken. They're pale. They look ill. They're staring at the floor. They are 100% defeated. Inmates are provided, 4 meals a day, always soup and bread. They're given books, newspapers, and a radio. This is another thing, the security measures, right? We're talking about the security measures. When a new inmate arrives, they are blindfolded. And then when you see it, you can see, and I put some pictures up. They're blindfolded. They are bent over at the waist and then handcuffed behind their back. So picture yourself bent over and your hands and arms sticking straight up in the air. It basically just puts you in a completely immobile position, taking away any security threat. You contrast that to the United States, where you might be shackled, behind the back. Sometimes if high security measures have to be taken, you're shackled at the waist or at the ankles. Maybe a stun belt's placed or a spit mask is placed over. But I'm sorry, but this makes the United States almost look like a playground. It almost looks like daycare. Seeing what these guys are subjected to every single day. They are then guided, blindfolded to their new home, and I write home in quotations because it's all deemed to not have a security risk. This Russian prison is not, they are definitely not risking, let's just forget an escape. Just somebody taking a wrong turn, somebody getting to a different area of the prison that they're not allowed. The blindfold's done so you can't map out or derive a layout of the location of where you're at, right? Because they talk about that. People that are locked up, they have nothing but time to figure out where they're at, what's the best way to find a weak point in the building, the construction of the building, or wherever they're at, the weak point of the cells or the weak point with the guards. There are no weak points. There are no weak points with the guards. Everything is surveilled. Everything is the same every single day. Like I said, you have to be very special to get here. Serial killers, murderers, crimes with very special circumstances. All right? If you've killed people in other prisons, you will also get sent here. It is the end of the line and a place that will break your spirit. Notable inmates, a gentleman, Vladimir Nikolaev, a Russian serial killer. He's the one, and if you watch the interviews, watch him online, he's got that weird smile with a couple teeth, did a lot of things, horrible things to his victims. He's smiling in there. I don't know. You can tell with him, though, not all the lights are on upstairs there. He's not clicking on all cylinders. So, he might be right at home. The other one, though, that I watched, Nikolai and Astankov murdered a family and then took them out to the forest and just basically got rid of the bodies. It was a horrible, horrible crime. Both of these guys, you can watch part of their interviews if you go online. He was also sent there for, again, remember, it's not just committing crimes. It's committing crimes in such a fashion that they are very heinous. They are the worst of the worst. Or like I said, you committed heinous crimes while locked up in another jail or prison in Russia. That last one, the Nikolai Astankov, you can physically see his face. He has no color. He stares at the ground. You can tell he would rather be dead. It's literally living in a clean version of hell. Now, Russia ranks first in the amount of people incarcerated in Europe per 100,000 and overall 17th globally. Now, some of these numbers are skewed because you just don't know exactly what's getting reported. But after, and I put some pictures up there, that's just what I was seeing, all right, when I was looking this up on a couple different websites. Now, remember, this is a game of would you rather. A game, it's a sick game, but would you rather? And what I want to know from you guys is, would you rather be in this Black Dolphin prison in Russia that we just talked about, or the one we're about to talk about? All right, the Center for Confinament of Terrorism. It's in El Salvador. Now, El Salvador is known for, at least what pops to my mind, literally, the first thing I think about when people say El Salvador, MS-13, Model Salvatrucha. This prison opened January 31st, 2023 in El Salvador. It was built with the purpose of imprisoning and going after the country's high-ranking members. El Salvador ranked number 1 globally in incarcerated population per 100,000. A very, very high murder rate, a very high property crime rate. Gangs run El Salvador. At least they did. They are saying, the supporters, right, and we're going to get into whose brainchild this was. This was the president, okay, that was newly elected a few years ago, Nayib Bukele. I hope I'm saying that right. Younger-looking guy, good-looking guy. He basically come in, and they said he came in with an iron fist. He promised to stomp out many of the country's gang members made up of MS-13 or Barrio 18 Sureños. He built this massive prison, 40,000 occupancy capacity. And then, as he was building that, he passed a measure, right? And basically in the House or the Senate, I don't know exactly how they do things, but he passed a measure into place, an emergency measure that President Bukele has put into. It's called the State of Exception. It's a measure to grant basically draconian powers to military and police. And what draconian means is a very old school, I don't want to say martial law, but kind of, it just allows... Well, just say it. It allows them to do whatever they deem necessary to get the streets cleaned up. So, in a matter of a very short amount of time, 72, so this emergency statute gets signed into place. 72,000 people proceeded to be detained. All right. Now, people against this said they swallowed up people that had no contacts to gang, no connections to gang. Maybe they had a third cousin who was a gang member. It didn't matter. They were going after everybody. And if they got it wrong, that's just collateral damage. Currently, there's about 12,000 gang members being housed in this facility, which is 45 miles southeast of the capital of El Salvador, which is San Salvador. The president has openly praised its construction and proclaimed, now again, it kind of ties into politics. So people that go against him say it's all a political move. It's all a move to say, hey, I cleaned up the streets. Look at what I did. Look at the crime rate going down. When in reality, he's incarcerating innocent people. He's not giving people the due process, and he's violating human rights. The president basically said El Salvador is one of the safest countries in Central America now. And before it was one of the worst, one of the most violent, had one of the highest crime rates. And they directly tie the construction of this prison and the amount of people that he's arrested and the amount of people he's taken off the street. They've tied that to his huge popularity numbers, right? He is beloved, or at least that's what it says in the polls, that he is beloved by his people. And some of this is true, all right? I saw stuff where they were interviewing people in the cities saying that since this measure came into place, they can run a business. They can sit outside. They don't have gang members as young as 14, 15 running in with knives demanding money. Basically, they were being extorted. So if you want to have your business here, you're going to pay us a tax every week. Murders being committed at random. You know, I don't think you fully understand the gang problem that goes on in El Salvador. MS-13, the violence, the viciousness, the brutality that this gang is known for. I don't know as much about Barrio 18, the Sureños, but if they're being mentioned in the same light as MS-13, I'm sure that's not on accident. So this is a little bit of a flip side to the Black Dolphin, and this is kind of why I picked these two for Would You Rather, where Black Dolphin's more for isolation. Maybe you're in there with another person. The cells house 65 to 70 people. And although everything is technically brand new, the prison was only built a year or two ago, the ventilation is poor. The heat is extreme. Prisoners have no pillows, mattresses, or sheets. They lie on bare metal. They are given a diet of rice, beans, and a hard-boiled egg or pasta. Now, I will say, right off the bat, if we're playing this game, Would You Rather, I'm going with this diet for sure over Russian soup and bread. Dear God, give me the rice, beans, egg, or pasta all day. At least I'm getting more nutrients. They are not given utensils. They have to eat with their hands. Now, that wasn't the same in the Russian prison. You could tell they had utensils because basically they said the utensils can be used as weapons, which I think when you have 65 to 70 people in a cell, you have to be more cognizant of that. Whereas if you're just giving people and you're constantly surveilling just 2 people in a cell at a time, okay, well, I can tell those 2 people, they're all your fork and knife, whatever we gave them, they're back. The only thing in each cell with 65 to 70 people are 2 sinks and 2 toilets. There is absolutely no privacy. So, picture going to the bathroom, picture being sick, picture whatever. You're going to do it in front of almost 100 people. They're let out 30 minutes a day for exercise using only their own body weight. If prisoners gain a small level of trust, they can do group talks where they go around to different parts of the prison and they talk to other inmates, maybe fresher rising inmates, maybe young ones that they think they can save, they can get to and change their mind on the path they've chosen. There are 19 guard towers with guards positioned all around the complex with fully automatic weapons. There are 2 electric fences as well as reinforced concrete walls. The guards, they openly brag about being able to, and this is where you talk about human rights violations, right? And again, think about Would You Rather. They openly brag about being able to fit double the amount of inmates that are supposed to fit in each cell. So would you rather be isolated, maybe with one other person or by yourself, or would you rather be crammed into a room with almost 100 people when maybe that room is only designed for 50? El Salvador still has the highest incarceration rates in the world, and this new facility is absolutely boosting those numbers, right? Now, I don't know if it's a for-profit scheme, the way a lot of people view these privatized prisons in the United States, but they are locking everybody up. One of the big issues is the fact that the new measure is having people, like I talked about, is having people detained that haven't done anything. They haven't had any due process. They might have a son or a daughter or a cousin that they were hanging out with, and if they catch you at the wrong place at the wrong time, you're going in there. Now, it might work itself out, you're going to get out, but still, rights are being violated at a massive level. But again, if it's for the better, they call it, right, for the better good, whose side are you on? Now, this is another thing. There are also claims of torture, and around 150 deaths, although it's not 100% verifiable, have been tied to this place since its opening at the beginning of 2023. The government is basically accused of having zero checks and balances and giving info that is actually, so the government's giving this info to us, right? Even some of this stuff that I'm reading off, it hasn't 100% been proven because the government's saying nobody's passed away due to what we've done to them. Nobody's being tortured. Nobody's being mistreated. Everything is being done on the up and up. And look, crime rates are so far down. Why would we not want this? The people that are against it are saying, we're not just going to take your word for it. And in that case, I don't blame them. I don't think you should just take the government's word for it. Challenge everything, question everything. Like I said, there's also a lot of support for the president and the people that have built this and to clean up the streets. Violence down, extortion down, the murder rates down. It's just very interesting to see both sides. Some people say it's worth it, the damage done by this measure. Some people say it's not worth it if you're violating people's rights. So, that being said, remember, you've got Black Dolphin in the border of Kazakhstan, in Russia. Soup and bread 4 times a day. Lights on 24/7. Motion detectors on. Being talked to every 15 minutes. There's obviously no good option. In my opinion, if you held a gun to my head and made me pick, I don't know, I'm claustrophobic. So in a way, I might have to pick Black Dolphin, which is crazy to say out loud. I never thought I would say I'd pick Black Dolphin, but I'm claustrophobic. So yeah, I guess I'd go with Black Dolphin. Please let me know what you guys think. This doesn't work. This video format doesn't work unless I get engagement from you guys. So look it up. Look up both prisons. Right back to me. I'm going to make sure I get back to each and every one of you. Love talking to you guys. I'll have another one up in a few days. Thank you so much for checking this video out. Peace.